welcome to Beyond the Mirror podcast. I'm very happy to introduce today a very special guest, very well respected and well known aesthetic practitioner and trainer, Dr. Victoria Manning. Dr. Victoria is a trainer for company St. Clair, and she's also a very successful businesswoman. Hello,
Thank you.
Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. Victoria, can you please tell us how did you started your career in aesthetics?
Okay, it goes back quite a long way. So I think I started out it was about over 20 years ago. So I was doing it alongside my general practice career. And I like kind of doing things different. I like new things. I'm a bit of a pioneer. So when had the opportunity of training in aesthetics, I thought actually that could be quite fun. And I guess I'm one of the dinosaurs, one of the early adopters. And I've just grown it ever since, and I don't look back.
I don't like the word dinosaur. I think maybe one of the leaders because you are leading the way in medical aesthetic, and I think you're always at the front at all the conferences, always sharing your knowledge, always updating your knowledge. I think so. Probably pioneer is a correct word.
Thank you.
And how did it feel at the time when you were starting the business and you have had a security of employment to leave a secure job? I presume you worked in NHS and try to go on your own adventure.
It's scary, isn't it? Initially, I was on my own, and then due to a personal tragedy, I lost my husband. So I changed directions and I moved down to the south to be near my parents, and that's where I met my now business partner, Charlotte. And we joined forces to make River Aesthetics. And I think in the early stages, it's really scary, but it's really nice having someone to bounce ideas off. And what we kind of wanted, because I'm a general practitioner by background, I wanted something from general practice to bring into aesthetics. So the same accountability, the same governance, all the good stuff we had in general practice, I wanted to bring into aesthetics. And with Charlotte, who's also a GP, we managed to kind of do that. And we kind of did general practice alongside our aesthetic careers for quite a long time. And then it got to a stage where I felt like I wasn't doing either thing particularly well. You know what I mean? I felt like I was being torn between my general practice, because at the time I was actually working in a prison. But they let me out in the evening, so it was fine. And I just felt actually, no, this is what I want to do. This is where my passion was. So it was about 8 years ago, I actually said goodbye to the kind of GP job that had all the stability, the monthly salaries, all the nice things, and then kind of went it alone, in business with Charlotte. And it is a huge risk. I don't know about you, when you start up, you don't have any patients. And when you have a list of 0 that you then have to build up. And, we were having weeks where you have like maybe 1 patient a day or every other day. So for 2 years, we probably didn't take a salary out of the business. And everyone says, you're crazy. But you have to kind of suck it in and embrace it and actually have the passion and I guess the determination to kind of make it work.
And were your family at the time supportive? Did you get a support from your family at those difficult times when it was uncertainties, when you couldn't take the salary out of the business?
I think they thought I would start raving bonkers, to be honest. But having said that, because I'd just been through a very difficult time losing my husband and then starting a new business, they were obviously supportive and they supported anything that I wanted to do. The finance side, I like most people, I financed on cards and whatever to make it work, which they thought was, again, a bit silly. But I couldn't fail. I had 2 young children, like you do. They were 7 and 8 at the time, so I couldn't fail.
Oh, it's a huge responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility. So I had this kind of inner determination. I am not going to muck this up. I have 2 kids. I want them to have a great upbringing, and I want this to work, which is this is why I did what I did.
I think willpower and the power of your thought play, and determination, a huge role. And so you have had a business partner, and you still have a business partner. So would you say it was easier to do it together? Could you done this on your own?
I'm sure both of us could have done it on our own because we had previously, but I think it was better together. We both have different qualities. I think I'm the crazy one, Charlotte's the sensible one. But we both bring different things to the table. I am very much a kind of entrepreneur. I'm a networker. I'm a people person. I'm an ideas person. I'm creative. Charlotte, on the other hand, is very much the blue personality. So the finance person, she was my check and balance. So without Charlotte, we'd be bankrupt. And without me, we probably wouldn't have a business. So together, it actually worked really, really well. But for anyone going into partnership, it is like a marriage. And you have to take that seriously. And you have to actually, and I spend more time with Charlotte than I did my own family at some points. And I think it's really important if you do go into partnership, knowing that person and knowing that you do actually gel. Yeah, everyone has arguments and we've had disagreements, but it's kind of realizing that you have to Charlotte always said to me, take the personality out of it and think like a business person. And she said, this isn't personal, this is business. And I'm a bit of an emotional person, so I kind of take everything to heart and everything kind of terribly seriously. And she's like, no, this is business. This is what, and once I guess I grew up, and that's one thing Charlotte did teach me along the way, was actually think of it like a business, not as kind of anything else. And yeah, the partnership really, really worked.
Well, I have been to your clinic and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I met Charlotte, who is fantastic practitioner. So I think you guys complement each other. So it worked really well for you. But did you know each other for a long time before you started a business?
No, not at all. So her children went to school with my now husband's children, and we went for dinner one night at a lovely restaurant and hotel in the New Forest. If you've been there, it's Limewood. Go, you'd love it. And we met over espresso martinis, which is a big joke kind of thing. So that's kind of our popular drink. And we just kind of started chatting, saying, because she wanted to do the same thing. She wanted to set up a clinic. She was a GP at the time. I was new to the area. I didn't know anyone. And my husband, Paul, said, actually, why don't you two chat and see if there's anything synergy here? And literally 4 weeks later, River Aesthetics was born.
Amazing.
And we found a very small kind of clinic in Lymington, which is where I'm from, that is probably smaller than this room put together. And then that's how it started.
But now your clinic is big, you have few locations. How many hours did you put in to start with to get where you are?
Hundreds. You know what it's like when you start a business. Literally, you work from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. And it's not even when you're seeing patients, because you are literally jack of all trades, aren't you? You're the admin person, you're the receptionist, you're the person that makes the tea, you're the person that injects. And then when you get home, all the administrative stuff starts, all the emails, all the other stuff, all the marketing. Because up until then, neither of us had any experience in marketing. And then social media was kind of coming into it. And obviously this is your domain because you're brilliant at it. But for me, it was, a real learning curve, and the ability to have to write newsletters, to actually understand CRM systems. It's a struggle.
Well, you get through it. Victoria, did you have a mentor when you just started in aesthetic, when you started your business?
So when I started in aesthetics, no, because they didn't really exist. We got training kind of in-house and people came to the clinic and trained us. When we started the practice, we went alone for a year, and then actually answered an advert on LinkedIn as someone who is probably known to a lot of people now, Pam Underdown, who does basically helps aesthetic practices kind of build up. And we were actually her first clients. So we were it is quite a nice story. And Pam came and met us and basically we went through our goals, what was our vision, what did we want to happen. And at that time, we didn't really have a clue. We just wanted to grow, and we wanted to be reputable in the industry and actually have a nice following. So we worked with Pam for going through finances, the marketing, for about a year with Pam, and we've kind of dipped in and out over the years since. And she kind of really got us going and got basically our ducks in a row. But what really, I think, made our clinic grow is we got into collagen stimulation treatments, and we found, I guess, a niche in the market, and we got into threads. So we were quite early adopters in the thread lifting kind of brigade. And people have lots of different thoughts. I know they do about threads. And for me at that time, it was something, we were doing something a bit different. It was sort of out of the box, I guess. So that's kind of what we kind of homed in on and actually perfected our techniques using various different threads. And I guess that's kind of how we grew, and that's how I guess we got known.
And I presume I already know the answer to the next questions that I'm going to ask you, but what is your favorite treatment in aesthetics?
It's an interesting answer, because I would previously have said threads hands down, but it's definitely regenerative medicine now. It's definitely, I think, I don't know about your patients, but my patients are definitely, the tide is turning. They're thinking less about just having fillers put in their face. They're actually thinking about their skin. They're thinking about the conditioning of the skin and more regenerative treatments. So I'm absolute favour of anything that stimulates our collagen. So collagen stimulators are a huge thing. So we use a lot of Allanze in clinic. I'm using a lot of polynucleotides now in clinic, but obviously with threads. But I don't use threads very often in isolation. They are always with another treatment. So we're addressing all the issues of aging. We're addressing volume loss. We're addressing the skin, and we're addressing sagging. So to actually put those combined together, you get a much nicer results. And also, as we've talked about before, patient selection. It's key. And to actually combine with the right patient with the right products, I think we get really phenomenal results.
I think you're very right. It's about combination of treatment and also regeneration from within.
Yeah.
I think it's just looking at the lifestyle, at the diet, at the well-being, at the certain deficits in our body. I think it's all important, very important. Threads is an interesting one because it has such a divide reputation among practitioners, and a lot of well-respected, well-talented practitioners absolutely don't recognize thread as a treatment. Why do you think is that?
I think they've had a bad reputation because people have been putting them in the wrong patients. So threads per se, Charlotte and I will treat patients with mild to moderate laxity. So mild to moderate sagging, not heavy, that hypertrophic aging where people have very heavy jowls or very thick skin or very thin skin, or that. So it is purely about patient selection. So for every 10 patients come through the door asking for a thread lift, we'll probably treat 2 on their own. We may combine it with other treatments, obviously, but the actual selection, we will say no to more people than we will say yes to.
I think absolutely down to patient selection. And I think what also make it very scary, which I still can't comprehend, and I don't think I ever will, is that people without any medical background
Don't get me started.
perform this treatment. It's absolutely, it's so dangerous. What is your thoughts on that?
It's very frustrating. I think in the UK, I think we're the laughing stock of the rest of the world. And when I talk to my global colleagues and things about what's happening in the UK, they literally are gobsmacked. They can't believe what's happening. So for those of you that don't know, in the UK, if you are a medical professional, you have to do threads in a CQC registered clinic. So that's akin to working in a general practice or a hospital. But if you are a lay individual, so you're not a medical, so you're not a dentist, nurse, or a doctor, you could do it in your kitchen and get away with it. So the least qualified you are, you can do whatever you want. But the more qualified you are, we're obviously, which is great, we have to comply with all these. And I'm hoping it will become illegal for people who are doing these treatments in their kitchen. I have seen patients who have been to someone's kitchen and had a thread lift. It's scary. But you also have to the patient has to take some responsibility from this as well. And if anyone with any iota of sense is going to seek a medical professional to have a treatment as invasive as a thread lift, I'd like to hope they would anyway.
Well, I think these days so much information is available out there for the patient, educational information, and I think as much as sometimes it could be misleading, I think most of the time it's actually very helpful and allows patient to make their informed and right choices. And I think it's also maybe because due to the popularity of aesthetic, it has been growing and growing. But what is in your opinion, Victoria? Do you see an end in sight of the popularity of aesthetic, or do you think it still has potential to grow?
I think we're still on the exponential curve, but I think it's changing what we're doing. I don't know if you've seen it in your practice, Olha, but I am seeing a definite shift from people just asking for fillers to wanting more natural results, more kind of regenerative treatments, and looking like themselves but just better. I'm seeing a lot less of people wanting a full face of fillers, for instance. Threads, perhaps, is actually on the incline because it gives natural, really subtle results. I'm seeing a lot of patients who want polynucleotides, so using salmon sperm and the DNA to basically restructure cells. And I think the exosomes, are absolutely coming up. And I think the tide is turning. I think it's changing what we're doing. And I'm just hoping, it becomes more medical. We know it's just been, aesthetic medicine has just had the go ahead in the Royal College, which is fantastic as a speciality.
So I was at this event. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I think it's moving in the right direction. It's slow, and I think we can keep fighting it. Or I don't want to just roll over and say it's happening, because I don't want to do that, because I don't think it's the right thing to do. We've all striven very hard for our medical degrees, our dental degrees. We've treated patients for years. We understand the risks, and I don't know about you. The older I get and the more risk adverse I get. And I guess it's that insight, isn't it, of knowing what can go wrong. And actually, I'm one of these people that likes being able to sleep at night.
Absolutely.
So I'm now doing a lot more treatments that I know I can pretty much guarantee results. I can minimize patient downtime, and I can minimize complication risks.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And when you mention about the changes in the trends, I would say it's probably not even a trend. I think we're finally coming to something that actually how it should be. And luckily in my clinic, we have a demographic of patient who always wanted natural results. So it's kind of this, regardless which treatment option we will choose, what will work best for one person might not be exactly the right treatment for the other. But we do give our patients guarantees that they will look natural, but we definitely look more at the skin health, regenerative treatment, as well as health within. So we do supplements becoming huge.
Yeah.
And I think preventative medicine finally as well taking its strong position in the UK, which I think is great. Nothing's better than prevention, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And I mean, one of my special interests is inflammation. So I'm writing a book on it, as we talked about earlier, is actually trying to reduce inflammation in the body, because we now know inflammation causes aging. So inflammaging, which is the new kind of buzzword, is anything we can reduce in the body, and reducing that inflammation is actually going to transpose to what we can do in the skin. And I think the holistic 360 approach you've just been talking about, and supplementing, reducing inflammation in the body, I think it's the way to go.
Absolutely. Victoria, in your opinion, especially for practitioners who are just starting their career today in the aesthetic, what is the best way to build their database and to increase patients' numbers?
Okay, I think we take it back to basics. I think getting a great foundation in your training, and actually going to a training provider that actually doesn't just take the money and run. They offer mentoring services afterwards. They offer you support afterwards. Because once, whether you're a GP, a dentist, a nurse, this is scary territory. And if you don't have someone to hold your hand after you've done it, potentially you're going to fail. So actually having first a training provider that will mentor you afterwards, I think is really important. And then practice what you've learned. You see so many people go on these courses and then they don't do anything with it. We've all been there. And that was the one advantage of having a partner, basically, is we could play. And I remember one of my first thread lifts I did, Olha, and Charlotte was talking to the patient and I was trying to do it, and I was trying to put this thread in, and I was trying to say, do this, saying, I can't do this. And she's like, oh, it's going really well to the patient. I'm like, an example, but it's practicing, isn't it? And it's doing that. And then word of mouth, I think, is one of it's hard, but if you can get it right, getting your patients to talk to their friends about what they've had done, word of mouth is huge. You cannot get a better recommendation. So we do our analytics on where our referral patients come from, where they're coming from, Google, Instagram. Our highest percentage is actually patient referrals. So
we are the same. we are the same.
And that speaks for itself. And we also offer a loyalty program. So if a patient refers us a patient, we basically reward that patient and also the patient they referred. So it's a win-win. And they can do that as many times as they want. So that, that's a kind of an incentive and a bit of a loyalty program. So we look after our patients. That's one thing. Things like newsletters, doing newsletters to 2 people it's not really gonna cut the mustard because no one's going to read them. Is building a database. So when you see a patient, get them to sign up for your newsletter. Really important. Do be out there on social media and be posting interesting things. You see so many boring accounts, but doing things educational, I think, is really important, and not just doing the mundane. Educating people, that's what we do for a living. We educate. We're not, that's what we do. And I think actually showing that is, when you're starting out, I think it's really important.
And what would be your advice to the patient who are actually looking to find the practitioner, and they look through the thousands or maybe hundreds of accounts on the Instagram, before and after pictures? What is the best way for them to come to the practitioner who are actually ethical, honest, and skillful?
I think that's a great question, because there are lots of sites out there. I'm not going to name them, but you pay to join a certain kind of conglomerate, and then they list various practitioners, but it's a paid thing, so people are paying to be there, so it's biased. I think reviews are very good, Google reviews, Trustpilot. But again, you can buy reviews. So it is very, very difficult. But I think kind of, word of mouth from referrals, you can't beat. I think looking at websites, looking at where they are, looking at the qualifications of the practitioners, what they've done, how many years they've done, and go and have a consultation. And if you get that funny feeling, I'm very much a gut person. And if I have a funny feeling in my tummy when I speak to someone and I don't feel comfortable, walk away. When you go into a clinic, is it clean? Are you greeted with respect? Do you feel intimidated, or do you feel welcomed? Do you feel like, actually, I'm happy here, I'm comfortable here? And when you see the doctor or the your practitioner who's treating you, do they make you feel like you want to feel? And if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to go ahead. And I think that's really, really important, going with your gut and actually having a consultation, understanding what that person's experience is, how many patients have they treated, how long have they been doing it, what is their background, do they update themselves? You and I go on so many conferences because I always see you there. And yes, we're speaking, but I learn just as much when I'm teaching as I do when I'm listening, when I'm just going to somewhere. It's important for patients to actually understand who that doctor is, and actually ask to see some before and after pictures. Actually, what's their work? Does their aesthetic align with your aesthetic? Because I've had patients that come in saying, I want to look like J-Lo and big and whatever. And that's not for me, and my reputation is key. And we've spent years, like you have, building your reputation, and it just takes one person to wreck it. So if I don't feel comfortable also treating a patient, I will also walk away and I say, I don't think I'm the right doctor to be treating you. I'm really sorry, but I don't think our values align. And I'm really honest with my patients, and I think it's really important.
I think you're very right. Honesty is very important, but also relying on your feelings. And if you don't feel comfortable, just don't do it. Very often, not often, but sometimes you hear a story from the patients, especially those who come to the clinic and they have had a bad experience or they have had complications. And when you're trying to find out what happened, sometimes they just would say, I was already at the clinic, I knew it wasn't right, but I just still went ahead with the treatment. So I think that is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, completely. And it's intimidating, isn't it? You go in somewhere and you feel like, oh, I don't know what to do, and you're kind of coerced into something. And I think the other thing, it's a big thing, is if you're having a consultation, never be talked into a treatment there and then. So unless it's, something like a very simple muscle relaxant injection, which I will do there and then, everything else, I will do a full consultation, and I'll give that patient downtime to go away, reflect, take in what I've told them, and let them make an informed decision whether they want to proceed or not. If you're kind of pushed into having something there and then, I think that kind of, for me, rings alarm bells.
Absolutely.
And you should be given time to try and take in everything and make a decision in your own time.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's better to sleep over and then make the right decision.
I don't do that when I'm shopping though.
Shopping is forgiving. Shopping is forgiving. And Victoria, in your opinion, do you think that aesthetic treatment, regenerative treatment, do they only impact their look? Is it vanity, or is it much deeper than that? Does it go beyond the mirror?
It definitely goes beyond the mirror. In my practice, I'm treating a lot of women who are, I guess, I track similar age to me. So I'm in my 50s. So I track the kind of perimenopausal, menopausal woman whose husband's run off with another woman who's 20 years her junior. Her confidence has been completely struck, or she's lost her job and she's now back in the work, trying to get a new job, and she's competing against younger people who are obviously younger. She feels more beautiful. She's lost all her confidence, and we're rebuilding that. So we are rebuilding that woman's confidence, that inner self, that inner worth, I guess. And quite often I will just sit and I will listen. And that's half my job done, is actually having the time to actually listen, which is, in my old job, I didn't have time. I had 5 or 7 minutes to understand a patient's problem, whatever, and then send them on their way. Now I have an hour, and it makes such a difference. And I can, we do transform lives. We build their confidence up, and they come back, or they've met a man, or they've got a new job, and they just feel so much better. And I think that's fabulous.
Absolutely. And I read on the post on one of the well-known aesthetic practitioner on social media that he said, we may not save lives, but we definitely change them.
Yeah.
And I would say that correct administrative treatment definitely can change life to much positive, confident, living life to the full potential, I would say.
Completely. And that's why you and I love what we do.
Absolutely. It's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. So finally, Victoria, coming to the end of our very dynamic conversation today, what one or maybe 2 things you wished you learned earlier in your career?
Are we talking about aesthetic practice, or are we talking about...
It could be your just general experience in your work career, or related to aesthetics, probably will be also quite good and insightful for new generation of aesthetic doctors.
Oh, for me, I wish I'd been more business savvy. At med school, they teach you nothing about running a business. And I think for me, that has been my steepest learning curve, and one that I've kind of shied away from, and let Charlotte do it. And she's done a fantastic job. So Charlotte, thank you. But I didn't understand anything. So she used to give me a spreadsheet. She still gives me spreadsheets, Olha, and I look at them, and they could be Japanese. I do not understand them. And we're looking at profit and loss statements. We're looking at this. We're looking at EBITDAs, and I'm just like, whoa. And I wish I'd actually paid attention probably more at school, my maths. But I think had I understood at an earlier age about that, I think I'd be in a different position than I am now. So one piece of advice: don't leave the boring things alone, understand them.
So it's not all fun.
No.
Victoria, and for the patient or practitioners who probably want some mentorship or training with you, patient who are looking for treatment, where they can find more information, how they can get in touch with you.
So thank you for that question. Thank you for having me. If you want to get in touch with me regarding kind of treatments, the best way of getting hold of me is via my clinic, which is River Aesthetics. And we have clinics in Bournemouth, Lymington, the New Forest, and in Harley Street. If it's a practitioner looking for mentoring or training, please either DM me on my personal Instagram, which is Dr. Vix Manning, or email me directly, drvixmanning@gmail.com. There you go.
Well, thank you very much, Vic. It has been absolute pleasure, and thank you for your time.
No, thank you for having me. I've loved it.
Thank you.